Do you know how powerful you are? Welcome to the RisePreneurs podcast.
Welcome to RisePreneurs.
Reshaping and elevating your mindset to help you achieve what you believe.
Sometimes we don't even see our own greatness. You can't be what you can't see.
And connecting Black cultures to build a community of talent and success.
Black people need to realize that they are assets. You are an asset.
When we rise, you rise.
Come together as a group.
This is RisePreneurs with Terrell Simmons.
That's the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of RiseUrbanNation. I'm your host, Terrell Simmons. And this episode, I know we said we were going to do more episodes with consulting with Sola. We fell off for a little bit because we just had so many great interviews, but we're going to start bringing that back, seeing how we can implement that at least once a month, if not through a podcast form or maybe on our social media. Stay tuned and let us know what you would like to hit us up on RiseUrbanNation over at Instagram and give us your comments, suggestions, things you'd like to see next. In this episode, I get further into why we had the name change. So for those who followed us since we were RisePreneurs, we had a cease and desist happen because unfortunately, there was another organization that had the same name, so we had to pivot real quickly. So we learned a valuable lesson in trademarking and trademarking your business name. It doesn't matter if you acquire the LLC of the business first. If you don't trademark your name, you don't have the right to continue using it unless you're going to license it from whoever trademarks the name first. But anyways, some valuable lessons learned. Hopefully you'll learn from our mistakes. Somebody gets a good learning lesson from this. But that's the story in a nutshell. And then we talk a little bit, me and Shola will talk a little bit about, trademarking. So enjoy the episode. It's been a long time, but
We can do this once in a while.
I know. Remember, our goal was, I think last time we talked about this, our goal was to do a consulting 101 with Sola every month for the people, talking about different topics. We kind of fell off, but I think we're going to get back into it. So, and we'll start with the very valuable mistake we learned about trademarking.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, that would be really fun because when I was talking with the lawyer, and she was saying, these companies, they take the initial money from you and stuff, and then they put the thing in, but there's certain things that you have to do consistently throughout the process, going back and forth with the USPTO, and you need a lawyer, you need someone to do that to represent you, right? Yeah. And these companies don't do that.
So we're learning it now. So welcome everybody to RiseUrbanNation. Look, I got it right.
Right?
RiseUrbanNation, formerly RisePreneurs. So me and Sola decided to get together, do an episode on trademarking because we're currently going through this, and we'll take the story from the beginning. We had all our legal paperwork for the business in order. Unfortunately, one of those things weren't the trademarking. And anytime you start a business, it's funny, you shared that social media post with me after we learned the lesson already, where a young lady, I forget the name of the young lady on social media that you shared with me, but she was talking about, listen, having an LLC and your business name does not protect your business name, right?
That is true.
And we've learned that. And I think we kind of knew, but it was a minor oversight, right?
Minor than major.
Yeah, it did turn major. And then so we got hit with a cease and desist from a lawyer representing the organization that owns RisePreneurs. And thus, RisePreneurs, the podcast, had to quickly shift to Run. But it was a good experience because I like the acronym Run. How do you feel about Run?
I love it because, when you're running something, it just seems like execution, right? Going for a run, run this, run consulting kind of thing, run it by me. It just it's like an action word, which really, really encompasses what we want to do, as a team, because it's very important to not only talk about things, but to say, okay, what can we put in place? What can we implement that is going to actually make an impact, make a change that will lead to a sustainable, economic prosperity. So it just, to me, I think it was the perfect, even though the situation that occurred to get us to this point, wasn't ideal. I feel like it was a metamorphosis of some kind, right? Because we had to sit down and reevaluate, okay, where do we want to go? We've been doing at this for the past year plus. Where do we want to go with this brand? And what are we exactly going to be doing, from here on out? Because the podcast has literally evolved into other things.
Yeah.
So for me, Run just became like a full circle kind of point, even though it started a bit, with discomfort. But now I just feel like, yes, this is what we're supposed to be. This is who we are.
And I'll take it a little deeper, because as I started to sit with it a little bit more, our focus is, predominantly on Black and Africans all across the diaspora. And I think about how Africans who were brought to the U.S. were stripped of their culture. And so they created their own culture, which was Black culture, which quickly became a staple of U.S. culture. And so when you look at media, commercial industry, so forth, how we basically, Black culture is, the movement that runs these companies, organizations that makes money, right? I look at it as a metamorphosis of like, yeah, we literally run this, like, and if we can run culture and being part of businesses and help them run and be successful, why can't we run it all? Why can't we run our business, our own businesses, run it up for ourselves, run up the checks? Let's run it all up. And so
yes. I'm really happy that now looking at how we're changing things, on the back end to fit, it just feels very right. I think that's, the best way to put it. So yeah, thank you, cease and desist letter.
Thank you, cease and desist letter. All right, so let's start from the beginning, because I know you've probably done trademarking before, so or you may have had some other prior stories to this, with trademarking. When is it the most important time to really start trademarking in your business from your experience and this new experience now? When do we actually start?
I think because of the fact that social media is a big part of business now, it is so important to do it, the moment you are going to be commercializing whatever it is you're doing, where there's going to be commerce involved, so that it won't become costly down the road. So your name, the tagline, the logo, or anything else that needs protection really, should be something that you should think about almost immediately, just like how you do when you're registering your business. I think why a lot of people shy away from it will be because of the cost involved and the fact that you truly need a professional to help you. It's all fine and dandy to find a platform online that says it can help you for, a small amount of dollars, but you have to think about the cost to the USPTO office, and the time is going to take to get it done. It takes about a year, essentially for this to happen. And, some online site where you can't meet anyone or a lawyer, it's not going to be that dedicated to helping you get your trademark through,
Yeah. I mean, we thought we could just easily go to an organization and do it. And then we saw the complexities and was like, all right, let's go to the lawyer. Exactly. Let's let the lawyer do this. Yeah. And I don't think, I didn't know it till like this year. I didn't know it took a year. Most people don't know it takes a year to do this, the trademarking of a name. So make sure you really, in your business plan, you really strategically plan that once you really have a name and a logo and a brand that you want to protect. What do you think is the biggest lesson that from our experience that people can gather from, when doing the trademarking process?
I think the biggest lesson for us would be getting professional advice, really. I believe if probably we had spoken to a lawyer from day one about it, it would have helped. But again, we did everything that we were supposed to do. We just didn't think about that part at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think also in terms of searching for the name. So when we even did a search, we realized that, and this is the thing that happens a lot with the internet. You can do a search on a name and it happens when you're registering a domain. However, if the person isn't active, right? So let's say the Facebook page has not been active for a year or 2 years, or the domain is already dead or something like that. Guess what? You automatically assume in your mind that, oh, it's not going to bother them, or the fact that you think, oh, I'm not doing this really to make money. Those are the kind of thoughts that kind of put a barrier to you getting it done. As far as I'm concerned now, one of the biggest updates I'm even going to put in my book, Terrell, is that, trademark, copyright, and things like that. I did mention it briefly, but I didn't. It's not a strong point. I mean, now I know that my copyright and not copyright, but trademark bill could increase, because now all my brands I'm considering, okay, I need to get these things done, or else I'm going to have to go through a whole stressful rebranding process, which we're lucky for us because of where we are in our organization. We can do this now. But imagine if people had gotten used to that brand globally. It could be a very expensive, exercise.
Yeah, it can be a very expensive and costly exercise. So learn from our mistakes. Now, you've worked with several organizations, companies, built several brands. And I know people are like, whoa, this is expensive. How much is it going to cost me? And it's hard for us to put a set figure on it. But in your experience and expertise, what are some cost factors and rough estimates? Now, remember, this is going to be different for everybody. So don't take what she's saying as like, oh, that's the set cost. Sola said this is it varies, right?
Yes.
On circumstances, but just to give people an idea of cost variances that it takes to trademark something, what would you say?
Well, you have to look at it in terms of what you're trademarking, right? So for every class, there's a cost. Every time you register your trademark, there's a cost. Then you have to look at, if you're using a lawyer, what does that look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to pay the lawyer, and lawyers are expensive, but you want to get it done right, because the worst thing is to register it in the wrong class. Then the other thing is,
here's my thing with lawyers though. Lawyers are expensive, yes, but think of the cost savings you're going to get down the road by going with the lawyer the first time to get it right. Because if you don't, it's going to be more expensive and costly for you down the road.
Exactly. So it's usually important that, for me, using the profession at the beginning is worth it, because then you know what not to do. Okay. So in terms of the cost, you have, per class is about $350. Okay. So, and that's standard in the USPTO office. Nothing to do about that. And if you go with some of these platforms, let's say InkFile, LegalZoom has something that's quite unique, because you get access to lawyers that actually assist you with either a patent or trademarking or copyright. Right, and then they'll literally review what you're doing, and then make the right choice for you to decide whether you need a copyright or a trademark registration. So with the trademark registration, one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people make as well is they think, oh, let me put TM and then that automatically protects me. Nope, it's who's got their stuff put in, who's got their papers put in first. So again, there's the submitting the application process, right? And then it could be the assessor comes back and forth. Now, that's where you need your lawyer, because the lawyer makes a case for you. If you're doing this with some online platform that doesn't have the team or the expertise behind them, if a query comes up for some reason, how does it get attended to? How do you even know at all? Because guess what? You didn't file it yourself. Somebody helped you do it. So it's for us, based on what we're trying to do with our brand, we're looking at a cost of about $2,500. And again, that would scare anyone. But, with the way we see Run, this is like a lifelong legacy, live beyond us kind of thing. We need to make sure that we've done the right thing for anyone who's coming after us to be able to utilize it without any issues. So it's important for you to think how far you want this to go. Would a copyright serve your purpose, or would a trademark do that? Now, trademark is something like Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is going to be here forever.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes a lot of sense that they protected their name. Same thing with Pepsi, so all those big brands, Apple, Google, they're all trademarked. Okay.
Yeah.
And it just gives you a kind of, oh, these people mean business about what they're doing, right? I mean, I've seen trademarks on the weirdest names on this planet, but I give kudos because you know what? They actually thought about this really deeply, that, hey, this is not going anywhere. And guess what? Even if the business doesn't work, you know what's going to happen? Someone might want to buy that. That is now an asset. So it's very important you think about things, in a different kind of way. I remember when Terrell and I started this thing, we didn't know where it would go. We didn't know what kind of impact we would make and how quickly it would happen. I think we had a trajectory of about 2-3 years, and what we've kind of achieved in 1 year is something that we've been amazed by. It's usually at that juncture that we will be like, okay, we need to monetize what we're doing. And that's another key thing about trademarking. It's all about commerce, right? If you're going to be selling something around a name, a slogan, you need to protect it, because someone can wake up one day and set up a new Facebook page that sounds exactly like it, which is what happened to us. And then guess what? They're gonna come after you if they actually make that step before you, even if you were there beforehand. So those are kind of things that I would be very cognizant of, moving forward in any business. It should be part of your startup costs, basically. It really should. In terms of patents, I mean, I'm in a company we have 2 patents, and so far we spent close to $15,000 on it, and that includes the lawyers and the advisors and even to the point of prototyping. So these things cost money, but it's worth it in the end. If someone comes up to us and say, hey, we want your brand run, and they want to pay us $1 million, guess what? The $2,500 does not even at all comprehend anymore, because this is a bigger amount. Someone sees value in that, but that's not going to happen. But I'm just giving an example and stuff. It's the same thing when people go sit down and trade and register domains, and then they sell it.
What?
I mean, I remember even my name. I was trying to, I remember when I was looking for my name, Adesola.com. That was already expensive, and I just laughed. I said someone had just sit down, put all the Nigerian names, and decide that they're gonna sell it. That was so funny. But yeah. So
I might have to trademark my name now. I think about it.
Should, Terrell, I mean, your name is actually quite unique. I mean, Terrell Simmons. So I really think that you should, even your last name as well. But you're now, when you have a trademark name, you're playing in the big leagues now. So that's where we're going. That's the direction we're taking. And one thing about it is the first person to file is the first person that wins. So same thing with patents. When you file your patent, it's provisional, and that you're literally saving the date. So once you get to the non-provisional stage, and you actually eventually get the patent, it's registered from the date you filed it. And that's the same way with your trademark. Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when we looked at the date of the other individual that had the trademark, and I was like, wait, when did I register the business? And then I looked at when I registered the business, like, it doesn't. And then I look back, and then it's like, it doesn't matter. Even though I beat him to the business, he had the trademark before me, so it still doesn't matter.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, maybe I could beat him here. And then come to find out that doesn't matter. So it's like, oh well. So much for thinking about that. Now I want to dial it back just a little bit, because I know we started talking about LegalZoom and the cost of that. And to be transparent, we do not have any affiliate marketing deal with LegalZoom. However, if LegalZoom wants to reach out to Run and you want to know how to work with Black businesses, we'll be happy to set something up. Disclaimer.
Yes.
But I remember you talking. You started talking about the cost, and I know you said with the patents it was around 2,000 or so, and then and looking at the timeline for that. When you did it, did you go through LegalZoom, or was that the cost that you're talking about?
Yeah, this is just from research. LegalZoom, okay, gotcha. I have a relationship with, because they're the ones that helped us with our patents, and they still are. And because LegalZoom connects you to lawyers, right? And so, but because they have like some kind of deal or whatever with these particular law firms, they give you the service a lot cheaper than you going directly to them. And it's funny because our lawyers always tell us every time we need to do something extra, they literally say, go back through LegalZoom and then, order it again. And then, if not, it will cost you like almost like sometimes 3 to 5 times what we pay LegalZoom. So, the cost of a trademark is very simple. See, this is the thing. The USPTO wants, you to be innovative. They want you to do all these things and register your trademark, copyright, and patents, right? They have videos, they have learning and resources. They always have webinars, which I attend all the time. I haven't attended any on trademark until we started with ours. What happened with ours? And I'm like, you know what? I want to make sure I'm well informed so that next time people are going to ask us for help about this. Like, hey, you guys, I can see you got a trademark on your name. How did you guys do it? And there's so many intricacies you have to understand. So for us, we now have to decide if we want to keep the icon with our brand name or trademark that. Because when you trademark, it's either you trademark the whole thing. So you submit a picture that has the logo, the name, the tagline together, and that's one trademark. If you want to trademark it in like saying, oh, I want run trademark individually. I want the logo and trademark individually. And, I want the tagline trademark individually. Guess what? That has to be 3 separate applications. Who's going to tell you that when you're doing something online through the internet with a robot? No one. And that's something that I only found out when I went in and went on a webinar and they explained how it works. They explained the options you have with filing. I think with us, we had the standard, which was $350 per class of goods or services. And they have a TEAS Plus, which is a trademark acronym, and it's $250 per class. How do I understand what the difference is between any of these? There's a fee for each class of goods or services in your application. Then you have to maintain your registration. A lot of people don't realize that. So if you have 2 classes, guess what? You're going to have to pay for that as well. So, if you register your trademarks, you file your documents to maintain your registration at regular intervals. These documents, they cost different amounts to file, but based on the number of classes in your registration, okay? So you can imagine, if you file 3 classes, you're going to have to pay for 3, that maintenance cost, which is $525, I believe, for 3. So and I understand a lot why Coca-Cola, it's a name, it's a logo as well. Same thing with Pepsi. I don't know if you notice, like all of a sudden, you don't tend to see the logo can change anytime, but the icon is the same thing with Apple, right? Apple has the name itself, and I bet the bitten apple as well, which has changed over time. Remember, it used to be multicolored, and all of a sudden it's just like a certain thing that the color can change whatever they apply it. So those are the kind of things that we need to think about when we're doing it. And it's like, I remember when I was doing, I think it was I can't remember what it was, but it was something to do with the design. And we had to make sure that on the page that we're submitting, and this was in England, by the way, everything was on that one page, because another page is cost. It adds more to the cost. So that's I mean, like, it's really crazy. Like in my mind, I'm like, okay, if I was gonna trademark anything, it would be RiseUrbanNation, because I bet you we're probably going to evolve the logo at some point, and then that would now that's another cost again, and getting the lawyer involved again. So these are discussions that Terrell and I have to have. They're never easy, but right now, for instance, our logo looks like a podcast with sunrise, right? And that's how we started, as a podcast, so it makes sense. But the more we evolve and grow, you're going to ask yourself that, does that really encompass everything we do? Is that the right look, or should we just do the sunrise or something? You have to think about all these little things, and every brand has evolved. I think the only brands that I've known that hasn't evolved is McDonald's and Coca-Cola. It's still the same, the same Coca-Cola look.
But they have actually, no, that's not true. I think Coca-Cola added classic, because it was Coca-Cola, then it goes to Coca-Cola Classic. But I mean, the actual look hasn't changed, but they just added one feature that is minute that they sometimes use or don't use, because they have this classic looking design.
yes, exactly. Well, I mean, I always look at the bigger brands to see what they're doing, in essence, to to guide, they have the big money pot, but to guide, but something that, and this is something that's very important. So our CPA, review, we have meetings with him regularly. And one of the key things he said when he looked at our business plan over the next year, because we do yearly reviews, he said, the only problem I see your business plan is legal. Because we have we pay a retainer. So I said, oh, why are you saying that? He said, because the bigger you get, the more legal bills you're going to have. And I said, yeah, once in a while, we spend money on our patents. And said, that's not the only thing you're going to spend money on, and then he this is our CPA mentioned trademarks. So we knew we had to file that for our company. So we put that in, and it was funny because we had already used a company for our patents. It was easy. But when you think about it, if an accountant is telling you that, he's seen other people's books.
Yeah.
So, he knows what he's saying. And when he said that, that's when I paid attention. And it was funny, literally a week after that is when we got that letter from the company. And that's when I went like crazy and I started searching every brand I owned. I started searching, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to spend at least 10 grand, in the next year to protect myself. And it's that simple because, it's happened to a mentee of mine who, one of the big social media companies, when literally sent us, well, it was more like an inquiry. Like, oh, we want to know what you're doing because you kind of filed your name in the same class as us. And again, that's another thing. So the class at which you file is very important. If someone feels like they want to dominate, and tech companies, especially the big tech companies, don't want to dominate a particular class, if someone is registering their company under that class, guess what? They are going to go after it. They're going to be curious and stuff because they have a whole team of lawyers who are paying attention to that. They want to make sure no one is going to, because see, in tech, if you got a product and somebody launches one tomorrow, it could disrupt yours. It could sincerely disrupt yours. Look at TikTok. Look at Snap. Look at what has happened to Snapchat at the moment. I don't remember the last time I went to that app.
Yeah, I don't think anybody I haven't used Snapchat in forever.
People use it. People do use it. Funny enough, the only brand I think that has been safe, in terms of social media, has been Pinterest. They have a unique platform that everyone likes, and it's like, oh, let me save this, and then I'm gonna use. It's like an online, well, as you know, it is an online pinboard. But really, to me, that's like the best model there. It's not jarring in your face to do anything. However, as platforms go, all of them are evolving to have the same features. I think for me, when I saw the daily the stories in Twitter, I got irritated. And then I now saw it in LinkedIn. I even got more irritated. I'm thinking social media is such a distraction. You don't need these things being put on there, making you want to give them, Twitter doesn't need that, to be honest.
I really don't think LinkedIn needs it either.
I don't think LinkedIn needs it either. Think about it. LinkedIn is a professional platform. What are you going to be posting every day on there without looking silly? So
it's mostly the interactions are either B2B or
and I think that
company professionals to companies. So I don't understand why they need that.
Exactly. And I think that's the kind of thing that puts LinkedIn at risk for another brand to say, you know what, this is what I want LinkedIn for, and so you can't do it, I'm going to launch. So we've got Alignable coming up. There's another platform called 10 Times that was designed for events, but people are exchanging business on these apps already. So it's again, trademarking is very important. I think the first thing you should do is do a deep search. So Google it, check the GoDaddy. If anything comes close, visit the site. See, don't just say, oh, someone's already done it, let me just move on. Let me just add an S, which is what we did. We added an S to ours, and we thought that would work, but no, it doesn't. Even though we have completely different activities, as you would say, but who's to know that down the line we might not do what they're doing? So again, the search is so important, but please, professional help. Once you even see that, and then don't get attached. Don't get emotionally attached to a name.
Yeah.
And that's something I've learned a long time ago. So
Oh, now we got to hear this
oh
story.
yeah, no,
Like,
but because remember,
how did you learn this
Terrell,
story?
I used to own. I've worked in marketing and design for a very long time, and graphic design. So helping people make apps, helping people make brands, logos, and all of a sudden they've realized that they have to change it. It could be an investor saying, "Oh, I would invest in this if you get a new name." It happens. And you have founders who are like, no, I like the name. I picked it because blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, that's just it's that the bit that name is worth nothing until the business makes money, until the business has a valuation of like $1 billion or $500,000 or something like that. So those are the kind of things that you need to think about. You need to detach yourself really as quickly as possible. I mean, we had that problem in Risepreneurs. The moment I saw that cease and desist, I was ready to be like, okay, let's look for a new name. But hey, guys, Terrell, well, he took a minute.
So it took me a minute. I had to, because first I had to sit with the like, dang, like this name was just catching on, and then two, I was like, all right, if I'm going to change the name, like I'm gonna be strategic.
Yeah.
And then after back and forth, Sola hit me with run, and I was like, that's it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like the purpose of the business is what you should be attached to, not what it's called or what is referenced. Yes, if you spend a lot of money on marketing and putting that name out there, it will be painful. But look, a lot of people rebrand. Okay, for instance, I mean, a brand that I really like, QuadPay, all of a sudden rebranded to Zip. I don't like the new name, but it does what it's supposed to do. It's the same service I like, so it does what it's supposed to do. So I had to remove the fact that I'm not, the brand doesn't mean anything like that to me, but the service does, right? If PayPal changes its name today, as long as the service is the same, I don't mind. I mean, and that's the funny thing. Instagram is owned by Facebook. WhatsApp, it's owned by Facebook, right? What if Facebook found a way of saying FaceApp or FaceGram or something? You see what I mean? I think having the separate brand, looks, even though they own it, has helped them, because if someone is upset with Facebook, guess what? Going to be a trigger effect. They're going to leave everything that Facebook owns. So you have a situation where they've learned the value of having differentiation in their brand. So, I mean, trademarks should be something that if you're doing a brand webinar or seminar or something, it should be added into it. Add that for the audience so that they know that this is important, this matters. And if you really want this to go where you think it's going to go, protect it. It's part of the cost, I mean, I always tell people, like, see if you can start a business for $500 or something. But honestly, that's not going to work out with the trademarking anymore, is it? You literally
it won't work out with the trademarking. But what they can do is they could test the market to see if they have a viable business, and this that lets you know whether it's worth trademarking or not.
Exactly.
So I mean, I still want to change what we did for the world, because we tested the market. We found we had a viable product, people want it, and it took off. So now we have to, do the proper steps to solidify the business with trademarking and all that stuff. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. So now I was trying to prep myself for our conversation, because I know you'd be on point. So I kind of like, all right, what are the exact steps to trademarking the business? I know, because I know the steps we took, but it may not be in the right order. So I'm looking at the 5 steps to trademarking a product or name by the Gerben. I don't know what this is, Gerben law.
Okay.
And so here's the 5 steps they give. They give 1, come up with a unique brand name for your product. 2, hire a trademark attorney. Oh, that's important, because you can't just get any attorney. We forgot to mention that. 3, perform a trademark search on the selected brand name. 4, file your trademark application with the USPTO, which stands for, what does it stand for again? US
Patent and Trademark Office.
That Patent and Trademark Office. There you go. Follow through with the USPTO during the application process. So let's go back to the beginning. And you can give me your tidbits on this. Step number 1, come up with a unique brand name for your product. Now, you've been instrumental and helped me out with that. And if they don't have a Sola to come up with these unique brand names and ideas, what's some advice you give to coming up with that unique brand name for your product?
I mean,
because you've been
there
so
are lots of
successful at
ways
doing
of coming up with the brand name. You look at what you're doing, see if you can find acronyms that would work. I mean, Apple is something where that is so random that essentially is not really connected to that. And that's another thing. You can pick a random, word and make it yours. Look at Pepsi, look at Coca-Cola, right? These are random, things. And you decide that, hey, I'm going to make it my own, right? And then I'm going to make it stick. All right. So being American, I mean, America seems to like acronyms a lot. So it will stick at some point, right? So make sure it's something people can pronounce. Make sure it's something that is, and if your name isn't catchy, make the slogan catchy, right? And where you can win could be the look of the brand itself, right? Make that very appealing. Look at what's popular. I mean, Microsoft, although that's like software, maybe micro as in maybe tiny or whatever, you have to look at all these things, play around with words. Like when I'm helping a brand come up with names, I ask them a lot of questions. I'm like, okay, what mood do you want? What do you want people to feel when they hear your business name? What is the whole point of this brand? And things like that. So, I mean, the last brand I helped create in one my incubator was Lady Aura. And how did that come about? The woman had a similar experience with breast cancer as her grandmother. And, I was like, oh, so why don't you what's her name? And then Aura. And I love that because Aura reminded me of aura, like, your aura, when you meet somebody. And that's a big thing with my relationship with that particular person. And the person is younger. So, to make it even more stronger, I said, you know what, let's call it Lady Aura, right? And that just stood out. Yeah. I mean, and when you meet the owner of the business, you will get it. You can say, oh, that she's a lady, all right. So those kind of things are things that come about. It's a whole process and you have to enjoy it, right? And this is where it's usually sticky when you're like, oh, I know what I went through to come up with the name. But guess what? Come up with 3 names that you like. So if one doesn't work out, because the next step now is getting the website. In fact, I remember one of the reasons why we had to stick with the Lady Aura was because when we tried to register Aura, that was already gone, right? Yeah. And, the business was about other people who experienced pain at the level that they have had and who now chose to live. So for her, the painful experience was like her grandmother didn't want any of the treatment. She just said it was too much, right? But she chose to fight through all that pain, and there were better treatments at her time. And, she had, what she used to maintain the pain, so she wasn't always on medication, is what she wished her grandma had. So there was a story there. So look at your story. Why are you doing this? Yeah. Apple's story is it's not unique, but it echoes with everything that they do. Every product you touch, it's just different. Think different, right? And that's exactly what Steve Jobs embodied. So think about who you are as a person. And that's something that usually gets me sometimes when I see valuable content, especially on the internet. And then I look at the name and I'm like, why? And then the person has even gone as far as trademarking it because they think it's so awesome. And I'm just thinking, oh, you're going to rebrand. and it's, look, I've been in marketing for 15 years. So I've seen so much and I'm not attached to it. Like, I'm not attached to a name. I mean, the only name I'm attached to is mine. So I remember how happy I was when I was able to register my full name when that came up. Because I was so happy and I and again, even if you like a name so much or something so much, you might have to purchase it on GoDaddy or domain provider because someone has sat down again to think about what you had thought of, even though it took you a while, and registered it. And they're not using it. And that annoys me even more, right? And you have to pay for it. I mean, there was a name that we liked for a particular brand and the cost of the domain was $50,000. Woo! But there will be someone one day that will pay for that. Do you see what I'm saying?
Somebody. It would never be me.
Well, it would never be you. Yeah, but I was like, oh my goodness, they're domain brokers. That's a job. Right. So
I know, and I know some of those people out there. They just buy up a bunch of domains and they sit on them until somebody.
But, I don't.
You know what's funny?
Yeah.
Nissan doesn't even have their own domain. There's somebody that owns Nissan.com, and Nissan refuses to pay the price tag to own Nissan.com.
Oh
So it's
my God. Yeah,
Nissan
they have.
USA, Nissan UK. If you
Yes,
look at it,
so they got the .co.uk one
Nissan.com.
though. But there's a funny story I'm going to share with you guys about the country Iceland.
Okay.
So there's Iceland in England that's a store. They literally sell all frozen goods, right?
Yeah.
And then they had trademarked that name.
Really?
Yes.
So how much did Iceland pay to get the name back?
You know what? I have no idea, but Iceland had to fight for it. They literally did. So they eventually won it in 2019, but it was a battle actually. The supermarket, battle with the country over its name. Can you imagine? Look, and honestly, I was shocked. I'm like, well, you know what, Nigeria, I would love us to rename. Honestly, hearing the history of that name, so I wouldn't mind if someone decides to trademark that and then whatever. But long and short story, it's a situation where if a country had to fight for its own name, that shows you how important a trademark is. So eventually, I think it was 2019, Iceland won the EU trademark battle, against the UK-based company. Supermarket, Jay. Come on, man. That took the cake. I just thought, this is crazy. What if someone has sat down somewhere and registered Facebook? Think about it. And even, I'm telling you, I had to look at all my brands and I had to say, you know what? If push comes to shove and then, I had to let go of the name, I have to be prepared because I wasn't prepared to pay for the trademarking then. Now that has changed. And I think, there's one of the great things about being the kind of support, like having a company that cuts across different countries is that you see what people value and take and have support for when you're working. So for us in the UK, we've got support, we've got grants available to help us with our IP. We've got grants available to help us with our trademark and things like that. And here, you really, there are grants that you can get that are stressful, but a small business owner, someone who's just launching a brand is not going to go through all these things. However, I do have to say that if you go to uspto.gov, of all websites, government websites, I think this one really is the best. And
oh, really?
Yes. And this is me saying it. I have dealt with the immigration website, and I have dealt with the sam.gov, the platform for bidding for government contracts. That was a nightmare. So those two are nightmares, literally. But the USPTO have got it right. You go straight on the website, immediately it says patents, trademark, IP policy, learning, and resources. See, that's where I would go first. When you register with them, guess what? They send you emails consistently. Then in the resources, they have a list of attorneys, agents, and paralegals. Oh, wow. Yes, they resources by audience also. And then they have kid and educators. So let's look at the audience now. So I'm on the website right now, so I'm reading out to you guys. Attorneys, agents, and paralegals, resources by audience.
And just to interject that makes, so like if you're going through the process, which number 2 of our process is hire a trademark attorney, you could just go to the site and look at what's there so you can get the right trademark attorney. Because that's so important, because a trademark attorney is a valuable asset to have in your corner, because they know all the trademark research tools and things that they would need to know to help you, trademark your business name. Whereas some other attorneys that may not specialize in that may not know.
Exactly. And then, as I was saying, on the Learn and Resources, they have resources for inventors and entrepreneurs. They have resources for kids and educators, for media, researchers, librarians, patent and trademark practitioners. So then they have the topic section that says fees and payments, general frequently asked questions, patents, frequently asked questions, trademark, frequently asked questions, transferring ownership and assignments help, which is an area that we've had to work on because, we had to do that with portions of our patent. So
I'm curious. Do they have, because number 3 on the list is perform a trademark search
you can do
for
that
selected
here.
brand name? Do they have that?
Yes,
do they have that
there? You can do that right here on the website. Yes, they do. So when you go, whatever you're looking for, let's say, okay, so we're talking about trademarks. So you go and hit the trademark tab, and automatically it shows you getting started, application process, maintaining a trademark registration. So in application process, the first thing under it is searching trademarks, which is exactly what I did, because I wanted to be sure that this person that was sending us a cease and desist letter was meant business. So the minute I just saw it in USPTO, what's it called? When I pulled it up and I saw it and I saw the date that they got the trademark through, I smiled, because if maybe we weren't fast enough, if we had done that, we probably would have got the name. But yeah, exactly. When I saw the date, and I'm like, wow, we had already started. This is a whole year. We already started. So that shows you the importance of, doing this, and really, if you really want to be taken seriously, that's something, because then, there's so many little things that people notice about your business when you're doing something, right? And they're like, you know what, I'm going to do it like they are. That's what I'm going to become, right? And that's exactly where we stand. And I think, Black and African businesses need to think about this very seriously. I mean, they even have trademarks in Nigeria, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. We've had to speak to a trademark attorney about it, and funny enough, is a lovely female lady, but it's a whole process. There is a process for that, I mean, like, and that's the thing. Even if a third world country thinks that it's something that's important, then you should take it seriously just as well.
Absolutely. Now, I want to go back to something you had talked about earlier in the show, which is step number 4. When you file your trademark application, there's a process where, they ask you different questions on your first use in commerce or your claim for intent of use. And you were also talking about the clarification of, which class you're going to be in. I'm not sure if it listed on there, but could you give a breakdown if it has it on there, like of what the different classes are?
Yeah, so I will give you an example, because there are 45 classes. We can't go through all of that. Yeah, for products and services, right? So the USPTO put sole products and services into 45 classes. So let's use the easiest one, a restaurant, right? So if you provide a service, and that's class 43, food services, right? You can also say you sell cookbooks and you teach cooking at the restaurant. You may want to register in class 16, paper goods, and class 41, education and entertainment services too. So can you see that? That's 3 classes. Yeah. Remember, the cost of this thing is either $350, right, for basic, or $250 for plus. That's $350 times 3 automatically from one company. And remember, you have to renew this every 5 or 10 years or something like that. And that's $525 per class. It makes you think a lot about, why there's, for instance, like we know in high gear, we're going to have a department specifically for IP, trademark, copyright. We need to, because right now we have 3 items we need to copyright. And the reason why we are pushing on this is because we saw another company that is creating products in the same space, well, not like ours, but they have named theirs very similar to how we name ours, with the UV in play. And they've trademarked every single one of them. Wow. Because they can't trademark the technology. That's someone else's invention. But how you use it has to be, they're trademarking that. They're putting a copyright on that. In fact, they have a patent. You can patent. That's not about patent. Patent is design or function, right? So if you and most people try and do both. In our case, we had really good lawyers. They said, no, focus on the function. Don't focus on design. And that was the best thing that our lawyer could have said to us. So when you're looking at this, you need, usually your trademark protection is limited to the classes listening. Because guess what? What if there's another class that someone decides to register your, and that's how my mentee got into trouble. She registered in the same class as one of these big tech brand, social media brands.
Oh man!
I'm like,
but I mean, how is she to know?
What?
Like,
again, exactly, which is why this, like, for instance, this session, hopefully this episode will really help people, because and this is all from me reading in the last 1 month, and I've not read enough, and I'm not done. I'm just like scratching the surface.
But you're way ahead of most folks, and I think this has been, and that's why I said, look, we gotta get this down on a podcast so we can, our mistake is a teachable moment.
Yes, yes, and also the time it takes is very important to understand. So it's supposed to take 6 to 9 months, apparently, if you're using your mark in commerce. So you're trading with it, right? So the USPTO will review your application within a few months, and then months, remember, and either send an office action with questions or concerns. See, this is where the lawyer is important, because if you do not respond to those properly, your application could be denied, right? So they would approve your trademark for publication. If published and there are no objections by the public within 30 days, your mark is officially registered. Now, I don't know about you guys, but have you seen a lawyer in action? I mean, and how they defend their client? These are things that you need to understand. They're going to defend your trademark. A company that is not affiliated with lawyers or have access to a lawyer to represent you with the USPTO office is not going to do that. So, while you find and dandy finding a company that says, hey, we only charge XYZ amount for trademark plus USPTO fee, so you can't avoid that no matter what, they're not going to represent you. That money you've paid, that tiny dollar you've paid, does not cover anything. You're still going to have to get help from a lawyer again. And that is just, to me, it's just it's very sad that there are business models around doing stuff like that. So if you're not yet using your trademark in commerce, that's something to remember. It will take longer. So it is like for us, like we have products that are coming out. So we need to get our trademark going. So it is important for them to see that you do have like maybe an e-commerce store or, your business that sells products and services for it to, basically get rushed, essentially. They will grant you a notice of allowance in that case. Which say
and I think that's why they say, step number 5, and they add that step number 5, follow through with the USPTO during the application process, because so many people who don't get lawyers, they don't follow through, and that resets the process back. So now you're back a whole nother year, or you have to restart over, or somebody may beat you through the process and you have to rename again. So and that's why Shola's really highlighting that, why that's so important.
Yeah, it is. And look, the thing is, they will grant you a statement of proof once they see, a statement of use once they see proof of use in commerce. So a receipt, an invoice, things like that, on your website where you sell stuff. So we sell merchandise, right? So that could potentially have helped us. But again, those guys already locked it in. So once that's submitted and approved, your mark is officially registered, right? So those are the kind of things that you should look at. Now, rejection, these do happen. And this is why you need an attorney to help you make sure that this does not happen. So when the USPTO is examining attorney, and it's an attorney that's going to examine your stuff, they might reject your mark if there's a chance consumers could confuse it with another trademark. So even if we went up again and tried to register as winners before, guess what? We would have lost, because it's like, hey, this is too close, right? Even if we're doing two separate things, but guess what? We're going to start selling stuff. We're going to do training, which I believe that other company was doing. So if your mark sounds like or looks like another mark in a similar industry, you're not gonna get it. So these are things that are
unless you're the first.
Yes, unless you're the first. Yes,
apply.
Yes, brother.
Unless you're the first.
Yes.
So whoever's the first to market wins.
Yes, exactly. So again, using another example so you understand what you can and cannot trademark: the name. So Nike, you can trademark Nike. Then the logo, they've trademarked the logo to you. And then the slogan, just do it. That belongs to them, guys. So you can't just write that on a t-shirt and then and start selling it. Yeah. You can trademark a song. You cannot trademark a book, film, or any original creative work. That's what a copyright is for, right? An invention, like a technical process, machine, manufactured good, or chemical formula of some sort. You need to get a patent for that. Okay. So these are different. And we're not talking about those right now, but just understand a name, a logo, a slogan. Those 3, okay? You'll be lucky if your name, your slogan are just one, and your logo are one thing.
Tell me, I want to meet the creative person that does that, because
I'm thinking about it right now, because there's a new brand we just launched, and I was thinking about the trademark and stuff like that. So when we were designing, I'm like, I wish I could just, but it was so tempting because the first letter of the brand, when I worked on the design with my team, and it was like, oh, that letter looks so good by itself. I can't. Yes, because this is an incubator we're working in, right? And that's the joy about this, learning this now. I can apply it to my my mentees. I can tell my the students in my incubator, because this incubator is specifically for fast moving consumer goods, right? So it's going to be everywhere, and you don't want a situation where someone comes and sees your product in a store and then they're like, oh, that looks like my brand, chocolate and cinnamon. There are no one was going to name their brand that, because it was, first of all, chocolateandcinnamon.com is super long, right? Then and what I see, this is one of the things that's tricky. When I picked that name for my beauty brand, people never understood why. And I'm like, look, chocolate and cinnamon, myself and my sister, I needed to find a better way to describe our skin tone. I've never liked the terminology black, because somebody else labeled me that. I wasn't in control of that label. And I see myself as African. I see myself as British. I see myself as Nigerian, right? So making it about color cheapens who I am. So I said, no, I'm going to make it what these people have created a label for good. Everybody loves chocolate. Everybody loves it. Well, most people love cinnamon, right? So just hearing that alone automatically makes people feel better. There's no one I've ever said that name to that you just don't smile. It's really funny. A lot of people and that's how much thought I put into that name. I mean, somebody went after me, and this is me posting food I cook. I'm not selling a brand or anything. I put something by Sola or something. I can't remember what it was I posted, or cooks by, I can't remember what it is or whatever. It was some kind of hashtag. Would you believe a company, this is years ago, by the way, sent me a DM about it.
Wow.
Really? Hashtag that, please stop using this hashtag because it could be confusing for our users. And I was like, oh my, it that shows you how serious this is. Someone is trying to build, I mean, even me, like when I was doing my how to make a million thing, I did not think anyone else was using it. Bro, it was so funny. It was how to marry a millionaire. It's the same hashtag. So what I had,
oh wow,
I know, right? I'm like, no, I don't want mine associated with this stuff. So I had to create the #HTMEM journey. So these are things that are really important for you to all note and take seriously. And you know what? If you go to the USPTO office, the website uspto.gov, you get everything you need, really. If it is confusing, then just get a lawyer. I mean, it just helps a lot to do that, and make sure it's someone who has done this before. I mean, the first thing that the lawyer said to us on a call, I explained what happened. I said, hey, we actually tried to do this by ourselves. We went on one of these platforms, we paid, and all of a sudden they tried to pull money out of our company account, and we're wondering why they're doing that, because they asked us to do certain things which hadn't been done already. So that let me know it wasn't really about the helping us. It was about the money. Now, this lawyer said, well, that's the problem a lot of people using this platform, because people don't realize that it's a whole process. It's going to take a year, right? And you're going to go back and forth with the USPTO office. If you're paying someone $100, think about the time they're going to spend going back and forth for a year. That 100 does not cover that.
Yeah,
the 100 covers them filling out the form for you and submitting it, and that's where it stops. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's very important to have a good lawyer that is going to be, looking out for you, really. And that's why my CPA was like, your legal bills are going to change. Very soon. And because we're looking for funding, he said, you need to change that quickly. And I'm like, oh, really? Yeah, I think you need to be looking. And he was right, about $5,000 a month. And even if you don't spend it, just have it. So if something happens, you have the funds to pay for any legal backlash. And that's super important.
Yeah, I think in this episode, you kind of made people, at least me, like, oh, LegalZoom seems like such a good investment now.
Well, LegalZoom is great. I mean, I'm not plugging them or anything. They, and stuff like that. But we've been very happy with them at High Gear, right? And I'm not even in charge of patents in my company. I just don't have that kind of patience to do all this back and forth stuff. So the person that's into detail and detail orientated, she does that. And that's, for me, if that's all she does, I'm happy with that. Because it's very stressful. I mean, to the point, the only thing I'm particular about is the technology. So when we're doing the whole process where we're doing filing and things like that, I know when there's a word that's wrong. I'm like, no, that does not describe what we're doing. You need to change that. That's wrong. And she goes back and forth. So, she makes sure that I take my time to read these documents, because imagine filing a trademark for a name, and the way believe and receive can be mixed with the I and E, and you just make that mistake, you're messed up.
Wow.
So these are little things you need to pay. And founders, CEOs, if you're not an attention to detail person, make sure you have people who are like that around you. I am not.
That part.
So in all my companies, I make sure I have, and let's put it this way, people who are attention to detail will rub you off the wrong way. So just so you, and if you do MBTI, you would know. You would know, because it would highlight that, hey, this person, but you need those people, because they make sure you don't make mistakes, right? So, and
or you just have to have somebody that has a really good personality, because I review some of your stuff, and you haven't got irritated with me yet. At least I don't think.
No, because I know. You see, this is the thing about self-awareness. I know before it may have, but when I know myself, I'm like, man, and it was a problem throughout school. I don't even know how the hell I got A's. My teachers would complain all the time, and I preferred to write. I didn't like typing. This was before. This is all Gen, is what they call us again, bro, Gen, what babies, that we were the ones that transitioned from paper to computer. Seriously, but I love to write because I could flow. But man, sometimes when I go back, and this is the thing, I go back and read what I read, I'm like, what was I trying to say here? The poor teacher has to read that. I remember seeing some of my work, and it got to a point, one of my professors said he was automatically deducting 5% from my work if I did not type it up. And I didn't care. So what I did, I worked harder to make sure I got 95. So I'm like, okay, no matter what, I'm still getting that A. And that's how stubborn I can be. See, I'm stubborn about the fact that I'm not detail orientated. Can you believe that? So no, I embrace when someone helps me. Look, bro, my bio, I never liked it, because I'm like, this doesn't describe me properly until you read it. And then you say, you know what, Sola, I'm going to just change it a little bit. I don't mind. I don't have that. I've become like a no ego, no, I'm working on pride. No,
I think all Africans are working on pride.
Oh man,
it's something that's been embedded in us since birth, and we have to blame our parents.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Our parents are very prideful.
We are, and that's what and this is where I always say that when people ask what's the difference between us Africans and our brothers and sisters that were stolen, and it's because I said they took something that it's very hard to give back. Not only did they take your bodies, they tortured your souls. They removed the things that make us okay, colonialism is different. We were on our own land, right? Mm-hmm. And now we are running, even though not as great, we are running our own land. And that's the difference, right? Pride, ego, there's certain things that happen to you when you're abused consistently for hundreds of years that you don't have those things anymore. And there's not really a book that helps you build. There's not book practice that helps you build those things. Yeah. You have to go find out who you are and stuff like that. And that's the journey of self-awareness really does that. Because for anyone who has gone through that painful history of slavery, something has been stolen from you. Yeah. Something has been stolen that you can't, and no matter what you do on someone else's soil, you're always going to want home. And there's something missing. And it's even no matter how much spiritual stuff that you have that can make it up, there's a certain level of completeness you feel once you step on African soil. And that's the only way I can describe it. And that's one of the biggest things about Run. that's one of the biggest things about what we're doing, myself and Terrell.
Yeah. And that's what we pride ourselves on in this podcast as you continue to listen. And we could go, me and Shola can go into a deep conversation about this, but, for the sake of time, we're going to wrap it up there. But, one thing this podcast has been able to do that we're proud of is we've been able to, for all our brothers and sisters across the diaspora that can't make it back home, we've been able to merge the stories and the conversations to bring both Africans all over the diaspora and living in Africa closer to home so that we have that sense of connection and get closer to building the new Wakanda where we can help each other run businesses, families, organizations, land, et cetera, et cetera. And the vision is unlimited right now where we'll take this. So let's wrap it up here. Let's go through. I'm going to go back through the 5 steps and then any last words of wisdoms from Shola and then where you can reach her. So 5 steps of trademarking that you heard today on this podcast is 1, come up with a unique brand name for your product. And if you need help with that, Shola is a whiz at doing that. So, reach out to her, get on her consult, however you want to do it. Hire a trademark attorney. And we talked about how important that is. 3, perform a trademark search on the selected brand name. File your trademark application with the USPTO and follow through with the USPTO during the application process. And hopefully, if you got the trademark attorney, you don't have to worry so much about that because the trademark attorney will help you stay on top of that. Anything else you want to give to the people, Shola?
No, I mean, this is just be intentional about what you're doing. Again, make sure that you get the right professionals for anything you're actually doing in your business. We realize that that's the key to success. So as simple as trademark might look, you can now see that there's a lot behind it and why that TM is next to those brands that you see that you buy in the stores. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And now you know the whole story of how RisePreneurs became run. Shola, where can the people find you? How can they connect with you? Social media, go ahead and give them all your @ and contacts. Oh, yeah. The easiest way to connect with me now, I've kind of put it all in one space, is Adesola Akindele.com/connect. So if you can't spell my name, please go on our page on Instagram and Facebook, and you will see it there, and our link is there. But very soon, we're going to be updating our website that would have easier ways for you to reach out to us. You can find me on Instagram. I prefer LinkedIn, for professional connections. If you just want to get to know me a little bit more and my personality, you can find 20% of it on my Instagram page. Yeah. You can just shoot me an email, Adesola at very soon it will be RiseUrbanNation.com. There. And I'll put all that in the show notes as well, including her link. So for those who've been reaching out to me who wanted to consult with her, I'll put all that in the show notes as well. So once again, consulting with Shola one-on-one. We're going to try to bring this to you more frequently so you can get all those great tips and tricks that you hear from us when we were at different conferences or in your neighborhood, and get you a wealth of information and resources to pass down. With that, thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. This has been another episode of Rise Urban Nation.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the RisePreneurs podcast.
Thank you for taking the journey.
Be sure to like, comment, and smash that subscribe button. And stay connected with Terrell on and off the show. Follow at RisePreneurs on all platforms.
Do what you love what you do. Don't chase the money. Let the money chase you.